Hello and welcome to The Balancing Act. I'm your host, Sarah Sheridan, Director of Sales and Recruiting at Hirewell and mom to three little ones. For today's show, I'm extra excited to welcome my manager and partner at Hirewell, Rosanna. Rosanna welcomed baby girl earlier this year, and I can't wait to have her join us. Ro, welcome.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm so excited to join. I love this podcast, love listening to you. As you know, you are my sounding board for all things momhood here at Hirewell, so very excited to be here.
Well, yay. So excited to have you. And let's kick things off. So, Ro, I know you've been at Hirewell a little over 10 years. Can you kind of walk us through your career journey and how you got here?
Yeah. So similar to you, I have been an agency recruiter my entire career. I graduated in 2008 and became an agency recruiter and really haven't looked back. I started in tech recruiting and really did that for about 7 years and then made the transition over to Hirewell in 2015. So like you said, I've been here a little over a decade now and joined our human resources practice at the time, which was only a few recruiters. Now we focus on all things corporate functions and we're close to 20 people and have a great team. So it's been a great 10 years. I've seen the company and, our team specifically grow a ton and really, get to kind of do it all, get to recruit still, work with clients, work with a great team and people like yourself. So it's been a great journey so far.
Love it. And Ro was the reason why I joined Hirewell, I must say.
I love it.
Awesome. And now to the fun part, let's pivot to family life. You
Yes.
recently-ish, although time does fly, welcomed your first baby girl, Lily. So tell us some more about that.
Yeah, so I welcomed a baby girl in January of this year. Yes, Lillian, but we call her Lily, and she has just been the greatest joy of our lives. I mean, it has been so fun, but also so challenging at the same time. But went on maternity leave, yeah, right at the beginning of the year, came back in April, and now have been in the working mom seat since April. Like I said earlier, I lean on Sarah a ton. I feel like our one-on-ones have turned into the first 5 to 15 minutes sometimes, talking all things kids. The one thing I did not know parents, each week it's like something new. You're learning something new. Right when you get the hang of something, it's changing, you're pivoting. Have always been able to do that in the workforce for the past almost 20 years, but learning it as a parent has been very different. But again, it's been the biggest joy of my life, and she's great. She's 10 months old. We're preparing for, her first holidays and then her first birthday in January, and time is just flying. Some days are the longest days of my life, but it has been the fastest year of my life for sure.
I know it's cheesy, but it really is like days are slow, but years fly. It's the
Yes.
weirdest sense of time.
Yep.
Oh. Well, one thing I always loved about you and your management style, I feel like you've been very open about kind of your process of freezing eggs, IVF. I know as your direct report, you kind of openly put appointments on your calendar, which I think is just so speaks highly of leadership. And, you mentioned you've been very open about your decision to freeze eggs in your early 30s. Can you
Yep.
kind of take us back to what led you to that decision and what it represented for you at that stage of your kind of life and just overall career at that time?
Yeah, of course. So yes, I froze my eggs in my early 30s-ish. I had been working for almost 10 years at the time, was living in Chicago, still living here, but living in Chicago, dating around, just, hadn't met the right person yet. And I'd had some friends that had actually done it that were just, a few years older than me. So they had started talking to me about it. And really, I just kind of got curious about it. I also had friends that were married and were struggling to get pregnant, even in their early 30s. So I just, feel like I was luckily kind of exposed to a lot of people on both sides, people that were doing it more proactively, and then also people who were really trying to have to figure it out in the thick of it. So I decided, as a 31, 32-year-old single girl in Chicago to freeze my eggs, which nowadays I feel like it is becoming more popular and you're hearing more and more people talk about it. I see people on social media and influencers. But even, almost at this point, that was 8 years ago, a lot of people weren't talking about it. So I was just really fortunate that it was one of my actual coworkers at my previous recruiting firm who became a good friend who was a few years older than me that did it. And I really just kind of leaned into her and kind of followed her footsteps, which I'm so glad I did. It took a lot of pressure off of me. It's obviously not a guaranteed policy that you'll get pregnant one day, but it did just kind of feel like a little bit of a weight lifted off of me. And then funny enough, I actually met my now husband like 3 months later after I did it. We didn't get married and, have a baby for years, but still it just, it was something that I felt like I could take control of as a working professional. And yeah, I'm so glad I did it.
I love that so much.
Yeah.
I mean, for those of us, because I think you're right. I think it's something that more and more people are doing. I mean, definitely IVF, but egg freezing, and it just wasn't kind of talked about. So can you just walk us through briefly, like emotionally, logistically, what was that egg freezing process? What was it like?
Yeah, so it's a lot of appointments, but it's actually not as time consuming as you think. I mean, you have to really kind of, probably carve out like 2 to 3 weeks, maybe a month more or less of like really dedicating, your body and time and, money, energies to it. But I was able to work throughout it. So you do about 2 to 15 days worth of different medicines. They monitor you on a daily, weekly basis. So you are going to a lot of appointments, but the process and the team that I did it through, they were super supportive. So even though I was single and I was doing it alone, it felt very supportive. And I, had someone to talk to and kind of walk me through what was going on. And I was able to, this was before COVID. So we were in the office then. I would go to an appointment, do blood work, come back and work. And then as you get closer to your actual like egg retrieval, you have more appointments and you have to take the day off for that. But it's honestly, it was much easier physically for me. I know that's not the case for everyone, but I went into it thinking, I'm going to be down and out. This is going to be such a hard process. And luckily I had a really easy process from what I've been told. But emotionally, it is a lot. You're doing a lot to your body, both physically, hormonal, and then again, financially, it's a big commitment as well, which I think even compared to then, companies have, made strides there, but there's just a lot. So I think having a support system while you go through it, whether you're doing it single or you're doing it as with a partner or as part of your IVF process, just having people to talk to, whether it's family, friends, is extremely important.
Awesome. And that kind of answers, I was going to say, like any words of wisdom. I feel like it is becoming more common, but it's still not as talked about. So people kind of are walking into it a bit blind. But you mentioned like support system. It sounds like, financially, maybe understand if your company offers any kind of like benefits towards this.
Yeah, and a lot of the places that do it, I mean, even when I did it, I think I was able to get set up on some type of like payment plan for it. So I think just before you dive into it, doing research, whether it's the clinic that you're going to,
Yeah.
I was able to talk to people that had went through it, both, through the company I worked with, but also, like I said, friends that had done it elsewhere. So really doing as much research. And now just even with Instagram and TikTok, I'm sure there's lots of people that, for good and bad, that are sharing experiences there. But I do feel like knowledge is power within that space. So being able to just kind of arm yourself with as much as possible before going into it, because it truly is a different experience for everyone. Again, I was really lucky. And I journaled whenever I did it. And I've looked back and kind of read through that to kind of take me back to that place. Because when you're in it, you're just so focused on like the end result, which you don't really know until you're through it, what that's going to look like.
Yeah.
But yeah, I tried to stay positive. I did as many like healthy and positive things throughout those few weeks and really just tried to keep my mind focused on, why I was doing this and kind of the long-term focus.
I love it. I would journal when trying to get pregnant too, and like going to acupuncture appointments, and it's like kind of fun to look back to.
I know. Yeah, I had a friend that
tunnel vision and just like focused. And
right. And you read it later on and you're like, oh, I was feeling that way, or I said that. I like don't even remember being in that state. So it is just nice to kind of release that emotion, because I don't think you'll remember it when you think back, years later.
Totally, totally. So now, like 2025, I feel like there are some of the big tech companies, just larger corporations like Meta, who are pretty progressive, offering a lot of benefit towards egg freezing. What do you feel like what kind of message is that sharing? And, what do you hope other employers do in terms of this space in the coming years?
Yeah, I mean, you're so right. So many big companies, Meta, Amazon, Microsoft, they've kind of set the standard of fertility treatments and proactive fertility being part of just their overall benefits and total rewards. And I love that because data shows people are getting married later, people are having
Hmm.
kids later, but unfortunately, our biological clocks and the way that our bodies are wired are not set up for that. So I think them setting the standard, is great. And hopefully, smaller, mid-sized companies can kind of continue to follow. I know it is harder with smaller companies because they don't have as much money to spend on those things. But
Hmm.
even if they can get creative, and like I said, whether it's, some type of payment plan that they can help their employees through, or even covering, part of the cost. I do know, depending on what state you live in too, and depending on your age, various insurance policies, living in Illinois, luckily we do have strong fertility benefits depending on your age. So there are those cases as well. But I think it's only going to continue to progress. I mean, again,
For
it's a
sure.
message that just shows like we value you, we want women working, and we want women to come back once they have kids, like, and
Yeah.
maybe that's not the journey for everyone, but there are a lot of women, you and myself, that enjoy working and being a mother at the same time. So anything you can do, whether it is offering fertility, adoption, egg freezing, I think it just shows the value of the woman in the workforce.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think sometimes everyone kind of narrows it down to like maternity leave specific, but
Right.
there's so much more than just that. It's kind of like how do you reboard? How do you prep for fertility treatments? And that's like just such a good point. That's all ways to show women we will support you and trying to balance it all. So, no,
Yeah.
great, great point.
Well, and just creating a culture where women feel comfortable talking about it. Like you said, like this isn't a topic, even in today's world, that like everyone's comfortable talking about it. I know when I did it, it definitely wasn't. And that was only 8 years ago, I guess, at this time. But I do think, more companies are having support groups around it, ERGs where women can talk about that. I know the clinic that I went through, I've seen that they go to some of these big companies and talk at the companies about options. So that's nice to see too, because I think like, not that there's a stigma, but it's just, it's kind of an
Yeah,
uncomfortable, conversation, which it shouldn't be. I mean, you don't have to talk about it necessarily if you don't want to, but if you do, you should feel like you have a support group or feel like it's something you should feel comfortable talking about, especially if you're single and you're still, unsure if you want to have kids, but you maybe want to at least have the option potentially. I think it's good that people are making it more of a comfortable topic in 2025.
totally agree. And going back to even like I wasn't aware of freezing eggs, but you were very open about your IVF journey. I
Yeah.
would love to kind of pivot, how did that differ? How is it similar to the egg freezing process? And then just one thing which I think you did, and it was just so cool, and I don't even know if you were aware, but you were just open, like even small things like putting something on your calendar, not just like meeting, which like I even probably would have done, but I think that transparency. I know a couple people on our team are going through IVF and felt super comfortable going to you for advice to just let you know is going on. So I'd love to hear more. Like, was that like a conscious decision to be that transparent, or was it just something you like naturally did as a open, transparent leader?
Yeah. Yeah, so I ended up actually doing kind of the second half of IVF. So the egg freezing part is essentially if you go through IVF, that's kind of the first journey is retrieving the eggs and that part. My husband and I, decided we want to have a child after we got married. We tried for about a year and, we're not able to get pregnant successfully. So we were able to luckily unfreeze those eggs and successfully make an embryo, do a transfer, and luckily had a very successful process and had a successful transfer, which is now our baby girl, Lily. So that is kind of the second part of IVF is that part of creating the embryo and transferring, which is what we did. And, I was lucky that I didn't have to do all of that in one because a lot of women going through IVF, they're trying to get eggs and maybe successful, maybe not, maybe having to go
Yeah.
through
Mhm.
multiple rounds of, egg retrievals. And again, I've had really lucky processes through all of this. So I think just the being transparent part for me, yeah, I'm just a pretty open person. And I think having people feel comfortable talking about it, whether they want to. Again, it's not something you push or you don't have to, but just knowing that the door is open and that everyone's going through something. So if they feel like they have someone they can talk to and that maybe you can connect in the slightest bit on something has always helped me. So I just try to be that same type of leader. And when I was going through it, even folks that hadn't went through it, like here at Higher Well, my leaders that I work with, they were very open at talking and kind of knowing what's going on, not pushy at all. And, we're very supportive of me. So I just try to kind of lead like that and lead by example.
Love it. And how do you, I mean, again, it's lots of appointments. I'm sure, you're not always feeling 100% your best. How did you navigate the IVF journey with like professional responsibilities, with being an employee, everything else going on in your life? Like, I do think it's an interesting time because I don't know, especially like guys in the workforce, I feel like they don't really know how to respond because when you're pregnant, they can be like, congrats, but it's just like an interesting gray space. And I don't think it's like
Totally.
bad intentions, but how did you kind of like just navigate that? And then like logistically that you had added responsibilities.
Right. It's kind of like that first trimester of pregnancy where most people are still kind of hiding it and you have to put
Yeah.
that smile on your face. I think you just have to put yourself first. If you're not feeling
Mhm.
well, like reschedule the meeting, like I said, work around your appointments. It's a short period. But I think for me, like if I was feeling just okay, like working actually kind of gave me like a release and something to focus on because it is such a mind game when you're, going through all of this and waiting to hear back your test results and your numbers and to see if things work or not. So I was lucky enough to feel pretty good where I actually enjoyed working. But on the days that I didn't, or if things, weren't going well, it's just, okay, let's take a mental health day or let's take an afternoon and this meeting can be pushed till tomorrow. But again, going back to kind of the transparency and at least having your close relationships know what you're going through, that helps a ton because then you can be open with them and you can kind of figure that out together.
Yeah.
And then it kind of prepares you if you are lucky enough to get pregnant to kind of continue on those first few weeks because that's usually pretty rough for
Yeah.
most.
You're like, I've
Just
already gone through this. So,
Right, right. But you're right. It is such like women have to navigate, guys don't really know what that's like. And,
right.
but I do think even if you have males that you can connect with, they probably have wives that have went through this. Like there are people that I've connected with that are males that, again, have wives or have sisters or that, more people know someone who's went through IVF or maybe frozen their eggs than you think. So again, just being able to connect and have community, at least for me, has always been key within this part of my life.
Yeah. No, for sure. And then, obviously you are a partner and a people manager managing a large team. After kind of going through the egg freezing and the IVF, like how has that influenced how you show up as a people manager? Do you feel like it's made you just more empathetic, open, anything? I mean, I certainly think you're an empathetic leader, but do you feel like that like really changed how you showed up and kind of your style?
Yeah, I think so. I think it just makes you realize like people are always going through something, whether it's something
Yeah.
like this, something, health related for themselves, a parent, a child. And then like on top of that, then becoming a parent is really, I think, what made me become more of a empathetic leader because I've told you time and time again, I did not realize how much you all had going on. Like
And put them out
before
every day.
yeah, like I would get onto our Monday morning meeting and I would, be up for an hour. So now I'm like, I've lived a whole life. Like you just realize that, and you realize this before you're a parent and before you go through this, but it's just kind of an added reminder of like how much people have going on in their personal life and creating a space where, again, if people want to feel comfortable talking to you, just giving them the room to do it, I think is so important.
I love it. And then, what's one thing, like looking back, thinking of like your younger self, any like piece of advice or takeaway you'd share with your younger self, or even kind of women who, again, early 30s are kind of in that same space of like the unknown, but they do feel passionate about their career and potentially a family?
Yeah, I mean, I think freeze your eggs.
Yeah,
Like
do
I
it.
am so, yeah, I will talk to
I
anyone
love it.
about that. And I think it, again, it doesn't have to be because you're like, I 100% want kids. It could be, I'm not sure if I want kids. I
Right.
just think if you have even kind of the slightest bit of like maybe one day because our bodies unfortunately just you get to a point where it gets harder and harder and the statistics, and I've looked at graphs and data and listened to podcasts and talked to professionals about this so many times, that you do get to a point where it gets harder and harder. Not to say you can't have a child past 40 or later on, many people do and very successfully, but there's a lot of things that make it more difficult. So if you can take that off your plate and just have a little bit more hope or a little bit more on your side, I think you'll only thank yourself. And then if you don't have kids, you're not going to be mad that you did that. It's just going to be something that you did to protect, that part if you did go that route. So, and I'm sure you can feel this too. It's more, I think, just like, don't overthink things. Things will work out. It'll all work out in the right time.
Yeah.
We all in our mid
You want
to
to
late
control
20s.
everything. And it's just like when you're most laid back, I swear that's when like it somehow happens.
Yeah, because time happens so quickly. You graduate college, you're having all this fun, and then you're like, I need to get married, I need to have a family, I need to do all these things, but I also like my career. And some people, you do have all that kind of fall in naturally. Sometimes it takes longer for certain things, but everyone I know, it's all kind of works out at the right time. But I'm a very big proponent of freezing your eggs, or at least having a conversation about it. If you're interested, this is my PSA. I will talk to anyone that listens to this podcast, message me.
That.
I am more than happy to have a 15-minute chat about it, because it's something I'm passionate about. It clearly did work out for me, and I'm so thankful I did it, because it helped me have my baby girl that I love so much, and I can't imagine my life without now.
It's almost like it's a way to use time as like a tool versus just like a ticking time clock. Like it's just like a very proactive thing you can do.
Right. And I think there are the misconception of like it's not a guarantee. Like that
Right.
is, and that's what they told me. Like, I loved the team I worked with, because they gave me so much data, and it was all realistic and very factual, but also, gave me, stories, and I learned so much throughout this process. And that's why I say, like, even if you don't do it, just learning about it is really cool.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, how was I 30 and I didn't know all this about my body, or just, about this
Like
process?
fertility or like PCOS, nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're
there's
doing
so
great.
much that women go through that, can impact your fertility. And that's only going to continue. And again, like, with people wanting to work and get their feet on the ground with their career, that timeline can only get pushed longer and longer. So,
For sure. Well, Ro, thank you so much for joining us. This is
yeah.
an important topic that I hope just continues to get more and more attention. And thank you all for tuning in. And please join us next time for more insights on balancing raising families with building successful careers. Thanks.
Bye. Thanks for having me.